What's cracking, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. New video. This morning, I was actually looking for something from this the Texas Prison Stories channel. Something I saw. I saw a short. It wasn't put out by him. The short wasn't, but it had to do something to do with what he had said. Right, and I don't want to say what it is now because I still want to look for it. Didn't find it yet, but I did see this, and this one is called "Could Texas Gangs Cliques Survive Inside of the California Prison System?" I clicked on it because I was like, let me see the angle. Let me see, what he has to say. And it's interesting. It's interesting to me. It's very interesting to me to hear someone from outside of California speak about what could happen in a California prison system. And so I want to react to it. I want to say first thing, shout out to all the Tejanos. Shout out. I get a lot of support from Texas. Forever there's been this rivalry, and I don't understand it. Me personally, I don't understand it, but there's been a rivalry between Tejanos and Mexicanos and Tejanos and California cats, right? And I don't understand again what it is. Now and then I get people jump in and hate. Well, how come you never mention the Mexican OT? I haven't really listened. There's a lot of people I don't listen to their music, right? I have heard them get off on some stuff, but I'm not a rap channel, and people try to turn it into something else. But like I said, shout out to all of Texas. I appreciate all the support I get. But the take that Mr. Snow has, that Tim Snow has on what could happen, is very interesting to me. And so let's get into it.
Texas Prison Story family, salute y'all. It's your boy Tim Snow back here with another one. Do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button for me, leave a comment for the algorithm. I sure appreciate it. This video right here is gonna maybe ruffle some feathers, maybe not, I don't know, but we're just gonna talk a little bit of facts.
Facts. And again, there's no disrespect to this man, but he's gonna speak what he says are facts. Me personally, I could say what I think would happen if California dudes went to Texas, but I could never call them facts. I could just call them my opinion. So I want to see these facts, and definitely going to respond. I watched about 5 minutes of this, and it made me decide, let me do a reaction. And I want to preface it with this. He says the name of a lot of organizations I never say the names of, and I'm not comfortable with them, but I'm gonna react to his video, right? And let's go, man.
So there were people in my comments from my video yesterday saying that the Tango Blasts would be deemed degenerates and no good in California unless they got with the program.
That right there, whoever said that, I don't know where they got that from. I don't think they've done time. Whoever said that. And if whoever said that is the reason why you made this video, I don't know. But I remember somebody from Texas being impressed. I've done time there was a vato from New York, Raza. There was a couple dudes from New Mexico, Arizona, Texas. And contrary to what people say, none of them got hit. For what? See, California functions differently than probably anywhere else, because we all knew if one of us or two of us was to go to these other states, it would be a different story than the way they're treated in California prisons. But let me just go step by step with what's being said here. But I'm gonna tell you right now, if a vato from Tango Blast pulls up in California, they're not gonna have an issue. I mean, unless there's something going on somewhere else and someone says, hey, Holmes, them vatos, whatever. But just for being from Texas, that vatos are going to be treated a certain way, not in my experience.
Basically, that program is pick one of the two big groups if you're Hispanic and get on down. But I'm here to tell you, it probably wouldn't work like you think it would work. All right. Because they've already been there. A lot of people don't think things through. They don't look at past history and all this, but there's so many stories. You can listen to them on YouTube about the EPT car in California, the inmates from El Paso, Texas. The inmates from El Paso, Texas broke apart and formed the Texas Syndicate in California. EPT is a tango, y'all. Come on now.
Okay, so he just mentioned two different groups. And do those groups even get along? The two groups he's talking about? So there's a conflict there, right? But what I want to make sure that Texas Prison Stories understands and other people understand is when somebody's reading history, the ones writing that history aren't very knowledgeable in the history for the most part. If you have a reporter and he's told by his editor, I need you to do this prison story. So he's going to stop writing about the cat in the tree and someone that got hit in the crosswalk. And he's going to put together a story and he's going to talk to a few people. Some of the people he talks to are probably knowledgeable, but the reporter is going to write whatever he's basically going to regurgitate stuff, right? Now, me being in prison for decades and me being a student of history and always wanting to learn, you always should learn the things that you plan on putting your energy into. Learn about it, right? And there was a presence that represented a thing for Texas and California in the 70s, right? We'll talk about that. But what Texas Prison Stories may not know and what should be mentioned is there was a large number of dudes that got involved in that Texas thing in California who were from California, but had family ties to Texas. That's a reality, and that is a fact. He's gonna talk about a migration and stuff. Yeah, there were dudes from Texas out here, but a lot of them again were from California, but had ties. They also didn't want to be a part of these other two things that were at odds with each other. They aligned with one, but they didn't want to be a part of it. And so you had various factors going on there, right? That I just feel like should be added into the mix. Where I don't want anybody to get confused that just all of a sudden there was just a gang, like there was hundreds of Tejanos that came and they formed the thing. No, it was a lot of dudes from California in that mix. And I knew older homies that ran me down the story, and one of them, his family actually was from Texas, and he had a lot of stories about that whole thing, and told me about a lot of autos from LA that went and got involved in that Texas thing, But just for clarification, man,
it's Tango EPT. So to say that they would be no good and they couldn't do it, they've already done it.
See, you can't apply what happened then to now. I think we have to be based in reality, right? So someone in the comments left a comment that I don't believe was based on reality or experience. And then it's receiving a response, no disrespect, but that I don't think is based on reality and definitely not experience. See, one's talking about if a couple dudes come. The other one is talking about as if there's hundreds already there established. Both are wrong. If 1, 2, 10 dudes show up, How do they go against thousands? How? If one of the two or both of the big groups that he mentioned, as he said, the big groups, if they decide one or both that something, and it doesn't even have to be from Texas, it can be from anywhere, that there's 5 or 10 of them, and they're not going to all land in the same spot. Remember that. Our system's huge. Our system in Texas are the biggest prison systems in the United States. It would be easy to eradicate that problem. It's just a phone call away. Remember, everybody has cell phones now. You can call any facility. They can talk to them immediately and say, "This is what's happening. This is what's happening." Okay. Yards released. Boom, boom, boom. And that's not saying anything bad about Tejanos or any group that would come to California. It's if you're out of bounds, you definitely don't have the numbers, right?
Then half of those guys branched off and started a legit prison gang. They went nationwide in the feds and came down here and took over a lot of Texas towns. Became a free world gang here, still a federal gang, still a state gang. So, I mean, to make that justification, I'm not sure where that comes from, other than probably just pride and not knowing your history. And both of those are understandable, but we can set it straight with facts. You know what I mean? And that's just the best way to do it, I guess. The earliest report that I could find in the newspapers, any media or anything like that about Texas inmates in California prison doing anything other than the shoe war. All right. Just the fact that they were there existing, everybody knows. They weren't ran slap off the yard or anything like that. And we'll even talk about why they're there. So that'll be pretty interesting to some of y'all that are younger. Look, this is an article from July 9th, 1976.
July 9th, 1976. So we're going to go back. What is it? 40 something years. We're going to go back 40 something years. And how does that apply to today? Right? Again, there were two big things in California that were at odds with each other. And then there was some people from Texas and a lot of people from California that decided to create something. That could never happen again. It couldn't happen. So I would ask, instead of going back to the 70s, grab the latest on what this group you're talking about in California. What are their numbers in California, and how could it become a factor in California? This is cool for a history lesson, and this is no knock on anyone from Texas. Texas has shooters. Texas has killers. Everyone does, right? But I'm just trying to clarify, because I didn't understand this. I was just, when I listened to a few minutes of it, I was like, how does that past history apply to today? Again, I don't think let me just say this. When I left Wasco Reception Center and I went to my first prison yard, we went to R&R and we're in the tank. The guys that are all going to be on our bus, all in one tank. And there was an OG from Fresno. He wasn't a bulldog because he came in before there was such a thing, right? And but he was from Fresno, and he ran around. He hung around with the dudes from Fresno, who they were all bulldogs. But again, he came in before that existed. So you always say, "I'm from Fresno," right? Big dude. And there was this other Mexicano, real light skin, blondish brown hair, right? And I'm sitting there, I'm just watching everybody. And the light skinned vato starts engaging the guy from Fresno. And he asks him, "Hey, Holmes, weren't you in Quilmas?" Which is San Quinn. "Hey, weren't you in Quilmas in '83 when that thing went down?" And the dude from Fresno looked at him and he was like, yeah. Now that's kind of conversation, me sitting there, I already know. These two dudes are sitting in a tank full of Southerners, whites and blacks, but Southerners. And they're discussing an incident in a prison, putting a year on it. So automatically, any Southerner that knows anything, the radar's up. Who's this Vato talking about? So you just sit there and you listen, right? You could tell the dude from Fresno wasn't enthusiastic about the conversation, the topic of the conversation, but he's engaged in it. So I'm listening, and the dude identifies. He goes, "Yeah, I'm a Tejano." Oh, okay, yeah, when they're talking. So that's whatever. We get to where we're gonna land, and Vatos let people know, "Hey, this Vato over here, he's from Texas, and he's talking about some stuff that went down in '83, and he was bragging about being there." And it was okay. We'll figure out who he is. Just keep an eye on him. There was no, hey, let's kill this Vato, and but he kept talking about that stuff and making it. He started to make it seem as though he was a part of this group that's highlighted on this page right here. And because of that, I don't know what happened to him, but he was no longer around, right? But had he just landed there and did his time, he wouldn't have had no problems. But to identify himself and bring heat to himself and basically say, I'm a part of this thing, that's where the problem was. If somebody from Texas comes and wherever they're from, they mind their own business, they do their time, they don't get involved in anybody else's stuff. If they use dope, they pay their bills. If they gamble, they pay their bills. They won't have a problem. It doesn't in California, it doesn't matter where you're from. It doesn't matter if you're a resident. People always bring up residents. None of that stuff matters. It's, are you a man or not? Do you conduct yourself like a man or not? Do you know how to do time or not? Anyways, let's get back to it.
It's talking about the Special Management Unit, where they send the confirmed gang members, the Aryan Brotherhood, the Black Guerrilla Family, the Hells Angels, the newcomers, the Crips. They even misspelled them. They were so new. And the Texas Syndicate, along with some other United White People's Republic, whatever that is. So as of 1976, for sure, they were coexisting with everybody in the Special Management Group. Nobody was making them drop their flag. Nobody was telling them they couldn't be TS. None of that. The men were sitting right there, holding it down for Tejas.
I think it's important. I don't like to get involved in this stuff, but it's important that, like I said, a lot of these dudes were from California, family ties to Texas, got into this thing, and they aligned themselves with one of the groups. And at some point within their thing, there was a break. And you had part of it aligned with one big group, and you had another part of it aligned with the other big group. These are the things, I don't know if he's going to get into it, but it's how does any of this apply to today is my question. Like the original comment that he's reacting and responding to is based on the modern system. And Texas Prison Stories is going back almost half a century and in response. Those prisons, they wouldn't even be housed in unless, I mean, they could be, but those prisons where that stuff's going on are low-level prisons. San Quentin, for those of you that are not in California, San Quentin is a level 2. Old Folsom, it's a level 2. Might be a level 3, maybe. I don't know. I think it's a level 2. Level 4s are maximum security yards. Level 4, 180 is the highest security. So I just want to again clarify. I don't know how a modern question is answered by an antiquated. I can't even say the word. Antiquated. I put 2 Q's in there. An antiquated news report. That California prison system that they're talking about doesn't exist anymore. It's a completely different thing, and the makeup of the population doesn't work. There would be no way in California, excuse me, where anybody could say, "Hey, you know what? Let's get together and form this." Who do you have that conversation with? How could you? You cannot feel safe. Anyone, I don't care who you are, talking about, you know what? Let's create something new. Fuck what's going on around here. You will be whacked that day. Who the fuck are you? You know. And like I always say, whether you live or die is up to God. But nobody's having them type of conversations. And if somebody comes to California prison yard and they're not from California, I promise you, nobody cares. Hey, where's that vato from? Now he's gonna have to say who he sells with. Who he's gonna house with. He has to do that, right? But it's not. If you're from Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, Nebraska, New York, I don't care what it is, and you come to California, again, I've said it already, and I'm gonna say it again, and I've said it a gang of times. I've said it so many times on lives. California doesn't care where you're from, man. They care about how you handle yourself, how you conduct yourself. We know in California that if we go to these other states, they have an issue with us just because we're from California. In a way, I understand it, because California dudes do move with arrogance. California dudes do believe they are criminally more sophisticated than everyone else, and they have an arrogance and an ego about them that rubs other states the wrong way. I get it. But I think the initial comment made to this man, I think it was wrong. So let's wrap it up.
Like they were supposed to. Because why would they go get involved with a Northern California, Southern California beef? Yes, of course, they align themselves with both of them factions at times.
Okay, cool.
Because prison politics are complicated, but they still remain and kept their identity. The reason it was even possible for there to be a Texas car in a California prison is for the simple fact that there were so many Texas people in California at that time. During the Great Depression and onwards, people were migrant fruit workers. They literally traveled from farm to farm, season to season. That was their way of life. One of the stories of my family, my mom always talks about the way her dad wanted her. This is where the economy was bad. There wasn't much industry. California men in Texas prisons. I've never known a time where there's a big number of men from California prisons here. I did meet some for sure, and they were all cool dudes, stand-up guys. But the tables have never turned that way.
Mm-hmm.
So with that being said, of course they clicked together. Of course they banded together. Sure they did. Did later they start to dwindle down and they start to get smaller and smaller? Yep. Because the mass migration stopped.
Well, see that right there. See, he is knowledgeable in a lot of this stuff. And that right there, Texas Prison Stories, that right there is where you're supposed to answer the question for. And I'm not trying to tell you how to do it, but in bringing up what happened, almost 50 years ago and applying it today in the beginning of your answer, I don't see how it's applicable, right? But I don't agree with just because somebody's from Texas, they would be deemed no good. in California. It doesn't work that way. And whoever said that either doesn't know what they're talking about, they're trolling, or they just don't like dudes from Texas for whatever their reason. But that statement, the comment was not made based on any type of experience or reality.
People found jobs. The economy got better. People, integration in the schools happened. People started getting better educations. They just didn't have to do it. Now we're in a time in life where California people are moving to Texas. So it all comes full circle.
Mhm.
But at that time, probably all the way into the 70s, we had a big movement going that way, and everybody knows it.
Mhm.
This next newspaper article right here is from July 1978. The newspaper was interviewing a gang expert, and I guess he was asked about, who the toughest gangs in the California prison system are. He said the Aryan Brotherhood and Texas Syndicate, or Texas Mexicans, may comprise the meanest warriors walking the prison lockup yards. That's definitely his words, not mine. I wasn't even born yet. But to show you that they were even considered to be talked about in that category, lets you know the type of situation we was dealing with and how there was nothing soft about these men, not even slightly. When we talk about,
I think I want to say something in regards to that. As I said, that prison system, that prison model doesn't exist in California anymore. And what I mean by that is San Quentin and Old Folsom housed all the killers basically in the state. Like, and there are blind spots there. There are things that could happen in those two joints that cannot happen where they house the maximum security guys now. Everything is under the gun now. You don't have 3 tiers or 5 tiers, and you have 2 tiers. And you have a mini 14, a guard with a mini 14 watching everything you're doing, right? It's a different thing. I remember having a conversation with one of the legends for the whites. And like, if I was to say his name, there people that know would be like, damn. But I don't say the names. I don't even want to say the organization. You guys can figure that out. And he told me about a time where he was on the tier with a legend from the Blacks organization. They caught each other slipping on the tier, or not slipping. They were both hunting, and they found each other. And they both began stabbing the shit out of each other. Boom, 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 boom. And the legend for the whites said, I knew I was dying. And I just kept trying to fight. I just kept trying to stab him. The cops shooting at him. Back then they had like the shotguns or whatever. And they're on the tier. And the white guy said, my arms were getting heavier. He said it was hard for me to stand up. And then he collapsed. He said, back then, everybody was a fucking man. And that was a different type of warfare. I have to be honest. The way they were doing things over there back then. When they created the 180s, the new, the 270s and the 180s, those are level 4, the 2 versions of the level 4 yards in California. You didn't have guys roaming the tiers like that. You didn't have it. The way the program was put in place was so different from now. But so when he's talking about right here, warriors back then, I've heard a lot of firsthand stories of how things were from dudes that were there in the 70s, in the 80s, before the system changed. So, yeah, they were really, really doing some stuff.
about there being a lot of Texas men back then, there were a lot. It's easier to show you than tell you. Look, this is numbers from Folsom Prison in 1981. The two large Hispanic gangs in Folsom, the Mexican Mafia and the Texas Syndicate, Miller said. He estimates active membership in the Mexican Mafia at 35 to 40 men, and the Texas Syndicate at 25.
That's in that prison. They're talking about in that prison itself, not throughout the system.
So think about that. 25 versus 35 to 40. I mean, 35 to 40 is still hard for 25 men to deal with at all times. Plus, they probably got their people doing what they want. But 25 was just the actual Texas Syndicate gang members.
Okay, see. In a situation like that, again, I'm not comfortable with these type of conversations, but I'm reacting to a video. So one group, he said, had 45. The other group had 25. The group that had 45 had hundreds more that weren't members, but that were under their authority. The 25 didn't have that. So this is where it comes back to shifting alliances for self-preservation. And I don't want to get into all that, but think about that. It makes sense if you think about it, right? A group that has 45 that are members, but has hundreds more that aren't members, but that are under their direction, then you can kind of see why when he even said there was shifting alliances. I'm going to go ahead and bring this to a close here. I don't want to, you guys go ahead and check out his channel, subscribe to his channel, and watch the rest of this video. I just wanted to add my 2 cents as far as how I believe the original comment was not based on reality or experience and may have been just trolling. And I think that Texas Prison Stories did a good video from what I saw, but I would have liked to see it more modern. And I think Texas Prison Stories could have maybe made some phone calls. How is the California system? What would happen if somebody were to land there from here or there? And he would have got a better understanding of how California works. Just be a man, eh? Be a man. Do the things you're supposed to do. Mind your own business. Keep your mouth shut. Pay your debts if you got any. And you're going to do your time. You're not obligated to nobody. You're from somewhere else. That's my video for today. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Everybody, please be safe. Be smart. And tell the ones you love that you love them, right? I'm out of here.